Welcome Sagittarius to your in-depth monthly forecast for October 2025. I'm going to share some of the big themes of the month to begin with, then on screen share your event chart. Right at the beginning of October, that always provides an influential backdrop for the whole period. I'll then go through each of the key influences in detail to give you a clear picture of what to look forward to. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please help it to continue to thrive and do so now. Please click or tap the bell notification symbol. The first 2/3 of this month, Sagittarius, put a lot of emphasis on your social interaction, your friendships, your network, but also your long-term future plans. So that's really exciting. But as the month goes on, there is going to be a shift. Mars starts this month, the planet of desire, in a hidden part of your scope, which can stir up the sediment from old issues that perhaps we think we've worked through, and sometimes our responses can be a little bit surprising. But Mercury and the Sun are going to join up with Mars as this month goes on. So there is going to be a much more psychological phase which really kicks in and becomes much more intense as the month goes on, but particularly from the 20th. So I will unpack all of that for you. But your ruler is the glorious Jupiter. And if you remember, Jupiter moved for you into your 8th house of long-term finance at the beginning of June last year. The problem was it was checked by the planet of restriction, Saturn. And it may be that if you wanted to speculate to accumulate, particularly if you're a more entrepreneurial person or just trying to squeeze more from your long-term assets, that may have not been so easy since then. Just to reassure you, I think in the early part of next year, there's a really great prospect for you to do that. But later this month, Jupiter and Saturn, which clashed in June, are actually going to forge a very positive alliance. And Mars, the planet of action, is going to be in the mix too. So I can't wait to share that with you. But just before I go into that, I want to share with you about my unique offer. You can order your personal natal forecast for year 2026 now, and I'll give you the rest of this year free. But also you'll get 30% off the individual prices, and you'll get your life roadmap report in my special package. That really helps you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far. All of us. It's totally unique to each person. But understanding those patterns and matching them to the forecast will help you to make your moves in the new year much more shrewdly. But also in my special offer, you'll get your free general zodiac forecast for each of the 12 signs, but also your Chinese forecast, your Vedic forecast, and your love forecast too in my special booklets. Please see the link below for more. So on the screen now, I'm sharing your event chart. As ever, we need to be mindful of the two luminaries, the Sun and also Mercury in the sign of Libra, which of course is about balance. But it's also a communicational sign, it's an air sign. And for you, what you're looking for is balance and positive interactions in your friendships. Any alliances, collaborations that you're developing, they need to work well. But the moon, very much about how we feel, is in the rather more cautious sign of Capricorn. And that suggests your life foundations are going to be part of this month's story. So we can be idealistic, we can have a big plan, but I feel because the moon is opposite your ruler Jupiter and they both pin back in a T-square to Mercury, like the Sun in your 11th house, it's probably best not to be over optimistic as you come into this month, and make sure that if you are wanting to carefully use your resources, that you don't get too swept away with things initially. However, Jupiter, as I mentioned, is going to be developing later this month a very exciting potential for you. But I just want to remind you about the role of Mars. Mars is in your 12th house. 12th house can be very psychological. Mars rules the sign of Scorpio traditionally. There may be something that you have worked through in the past that could still be a little bit tender, but you might not be completely conscious of this, because Mars in the 12th house can trigger our sensitivities. And of course, Mars can be about anger, and the 12th house can be about sadness. It can also be, sadly, about betrayal. So if you did go through something in your past which was quite challenging, I think as this month goes on, there is going to be a series of energies which could bring up some old sediment that you may need to look at. But one of the great things about this month is that Mars starts it in a very good semi-sextile with the Sun. If there are particular connections you have to people or someone close who really has your back and understands some of your history, they can be very supportive through this month. The other thing to point out is that Venus, the planet of relating but also of money, is in a very prominent part of your chart. If you want to make progress in terms of your career, the contacts you have will be influential with Mercury and the Sun, but the way you communicate to those contacts will be part of the process. So Venus can give you an added level of discretion and a degree of diplomacy and charm, so that's very positive. And just to go back to the 1st of September, you may recall that Saturn, which has quite the reputation, inverted back into your 4th house of emotion, will be joined on the 22nd of this month by Neptune, which rules the sign of Pisces, the modern ruler. And so it does suggest this month that at times, just staying in touch with how you feel is really important, but particularly from the 3rd through to the 6th, because as Mercury moves forward, it does forge an inconjunction, what's known as a quincunx, with Saturn. So as much as there may be someone who's great fun to be with, may want to work with you closely, always let Saturn and then Neptune guide you by, does it feel right? And I think it's something that Sagittarius people can be slightly dismissive of because of your innate boldness, innate positivity. You want to be on the front foot. You can think that by just remaining very dynamic, that there's no obstacle you can't overcome, which is a fantastic quality. But I think that Saturn and Neptune, right through to the middle of February next year, when Saturn emerges back into Aries, following on for Neptune at the end of January, they are saying this is going to be a key time for your emotional world, the foundations of your world. So as you go into this month, it looks sociable, it looks bubbly, it looks buzzy, but just being aware of those more psychological influences with Mars, Saturn and Jupiter is important too. So on the 6th of this month, Mercury joins up with Mars in that 12th house. Mercury in the 12th house is not so happy, but you can turn this to your advantage, because Mercury actually in Scorpio is fantastic for any kind of research. If there is something you want to check out deeply, you can do it with Mercury's help through to the 29th, when Mercury will be arriving in your zodiac sign. However, on the 7th of this month, we have a full moon. Full moons, moon opposite sun, can tease into the open something that may be a little out of kilter. One of the things that I think maybe that you're going to think about over the following 2 weeks is your time management. You know, and that's where Mars and then Mercury being in your 12th house are just saying it's great to be in connection to people, but those and Saturn in the 4th just are encouraging you to always orientate towards people you feel very comfortable with, all the way to feeling emotionally safe. But the 13th is one of the most stunning moments of the whole year, to be honest, and it can be fantastic for you. Because Venus moves into Libra, which she rules, but this is very social, so she's replacing Mercury. But Venus here, she's been using her charm to help you in the first 2 weeks of the month professionally. Now it's going to help you around those social interactions. But the connection between Venus, Uranus and Pluto suggests a very important conversation can happen at the heart of this month. It may be social, it could even be romantic, but some kind of electric connection can prove to be extremely exciting. The 14th sees Pluto end a long retrograde, which began in early May. It's an annual 5-month event. Pluto's about transformation. It's in your third house. It's been there since, first of all, for 10 weeks in 23 from March. We had about 35 weeks in 24, and now it's in the sign of Aquarius full time. And for you, that could have a transformative impact on your ideas, your connection to your community, how you use technology can all be very, very important for you. So Pluto going direct and Venus connecting to it, along with Uranus, can be very positive at that point of the month. But the 15th to the 26th sees Mercury and Mars in a conjunction, which peaks exactly on the 20th. And that's in a very tender part of your scope. When Mars and Mercury are together, it can make us a bit impatient about expressing our ideas. But the 12th house is so tender and sensitive, you may find yourself suddenly wanting to say something if you feel someone's being unfair in quite a triggering way, to be honest. The 21st, the new moon in Libra, would ordinarily be your annual event to revive and refresh your social interaction. That's a complex new moon, particularly with Neptune going back into your 4th house of emotion on the 22nd and the Sun moving into your 12th house of deep reflection on the 23rd. So we have that conjunction between Mercury and Mars, followed by the Sun arriving in your 12th house, but then clashing very painfully, I feel, with Pluto. There may be some very powerful conversations at this point in the month. Someone may say something to you that you're not expecting. They may have an observation on the way you approach things that you're not conscious of. But equally, you could reveal something that you've been harbouring deeply. You could bring something up to do with an old grievance or event. It may be linked to a sibling. It could be linked to a neighbour. And when you do share this, you're going to share it with a lot of conviction. So this can be quite a powerful part of the whole year for you, because as I said at the outset, your default is to be resolutely positive on the front foot, which is a fantastic quality. But you really are being pushed to be quite picky about your social circle, quite choosy about your friendships, selective about your long-term plans to make sure that always the emotional dimension is something you're considering, or where you're living and who you're living with. So in this last third of the month, stuff that may have lain dormant right deep within you. Because I really believe in something called Gestalt, which is essentially that we store emotions within our body, because whenever a big shock happens, our way of dealing with it, or the body or the mind's way of dealing with it, is not necessarily to process it at that moment. We could go very tense, we may get angry, we may get tearful. We don't necessarily move the emotion through us. And it's possible that you can use these energies in the last third of this month to unlock and free and release stuff that's been really perhaps inhibiting for a long time. So don't judge yourself if you feel vulnerable, or if you feel that some of your frailties are showing, or if you feel anxious. Embrace that, because it's all part of the human state. We all have those emotions, and it's very, very important. And that's really the lesson of Saturn over the last couple of years, to accept that just like everyone else, you're not a machine, because there is that part of you that has that innate self-belief and desire to bounce back, be very redoubtable, resilient. They're all incredible qualities. You've not lost them. You're just being asked by Saturn to become more aware of growing another part of your consciousness, which is the emotion. So at the end of this month, as Saturn, Jupiter and Mars all align in a grand water trine, you could make sense of something that's proved quite elusive for you for quite a long time. Secrets can be revealed. You know, if you're someone who's very much into personal development, you're reading books on, self-help books, you're having some counselling, all of these things, if you're trying to release yourself from some kind of addictive behaviour, all of that can come into focus in a very constructive and positive way if you embrace the opportunity as this month draws to a close. And then with Mercury moving into your sign on the 29th, give yourself permission to do something a bit more Sagittarius, a bit more off the cuff, a bit more that just gives you a switch of gear, which brings a spark of excitement and passion, which is obviously very much what you're about. So the story of this month is quite complex for you, Sagittarius, but if you can go with it, there's so much growth and so much to gain. Because if you try to avoid some of this tender stuff, you could find that your emotions are really up and down in quite a changeable way. Whereas if you stay in touch with how you feel, it could be a really life-changing month in an extremely constructive manner. If you've yet to watch your year 2026 Sagittarius deep dive video, please click on the link within this video and you can view it now. Have a great October, all the best and goodbye.